She was just a little girl waiting for her mom, clutching her backpack as if it were the only shield she had. But instead of comfort, she faced laughter, the kind that cuts deep, mocking her words, mocking her truth. A uniformed officer didn't believe her, didn't respect her, and certainly didn't expect what would happen next. Because sometimes, the people we dismiss the most carry the greatest strength behind them. And when her mother finally appeared, everything changed. The question is, changed for who? It started out like any other afternoon. A young girl, no older than 10, waited outside the school gates, scanning the crowd for a familiar face. Her mother wasn't just her hero. She was her safe place, her constant source of pride. Life for them hadn't been easy, but it was filled with resilience, laughter, and the quiet strength that comes from pushing through challenges others couldn't imagine. That day, the girl clutched her backpack, shifting from one foot to the other, unaware of the watchful eyes around her. She spoke with innocent confidence about who her mother was, never thinking it would spark disbelief. Yet in that moment, her truth was dismissed. Her words turned into a joke by someone who wore authority on his chest. What none of them realized was that this ordinary afternoon was about to unravel into something unforgettable, a moment where prejudice met its match. The laughter started small, but in the quiet space outside the school, it cut like a blade. The officer leaned back against his car, shaking his head as though the girl's words were nothing but a silly fantasy. "Special forces? Your mom?" His tone wasn't just mocking. It carried that familiar weight, the one born from years of assuming who mattered and who didn't. The girl's cheeks burned. She wasn't used to being called a liar. She wasn't used to adults, especially ones in uniform, turning her truth into a punchline. Around her, a few other parents shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. Silence, in moments like this, was as loud as the laughter itself. The officer's disbelief wasn't innocent. It was rooted in something deeper. To him, a young black girl boasting that her mother served her country at the highest level wasn't just unbelievable, it was laughable. And with every chuckle, he made it clear that in his world, people like her weren't supposed to carry that kind of honor, that kind of power. The girl tried to explain again, her voice trembling but firm. She knew who her mother was. She knew the sacrifices, the discipline, the nights when her mom left without explanation and returned with eyes that carried stories untold. But no explanation was enough. The officer's smirk only widened, his words dripping with dismissal. He didn't see bravery in her voice. He saw a child he could belittle. And then he went further. He started performing his disbelief, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Special forces, huh? Maybe in a movie?" His laughter carried across the parking lot, and with each word, the girl's world shrank smaller. She clutched her backpack tighter, wishing her mom would appear, wishing someone would stand up, but no one did. Time slowed. The weight of humiliation pressed heavy on her chest. She had been proud moments ago, proud to share who her mother was, proud to feel part of something bigger than herself. But now that pride was being twisted, ridiculed, stomped into the dirt. And then, just as his laughter reached its peak, there was a shift. Heads turned. The sound of boots clicking against the pavement grew louder. A figure emerged, steady and composed, walking with a presence that demanded attention. The officer's grin faltered, his laugh breaking into silence as he realized the truth might not be so funny after all. But what came next would be more than just embarrassment. It would be a reckoning. The sound of footsteps grew heavier, echoing like a drumbeat in the tense silence. The girl's eyes lit up. Her mother had finally arrived. But the relief in her chest was drowned out by the officer's reaction. His posture stiffened, his hand drifting toward his belt as if preparing for trouble, as if the very presence of a strong black woman in uniform was a threat. Her mother walked with the quiet authority of someone who had seen combat, who had endured more than most could imagine. The badges on her chest told a story of sacrifice, of service, of honor. Yet none of that mattered in the officer's eyes. To him, she wasn't a decorated soldier. She was someone to be challenged, someone to be doubted. "Is this your so-called special forces, Mom?" he sneered, his laughter gone but his arrogance intact. He demanded proof, his voice rising, his suspicion thick with the weight of prejudice. The crowd that had once been silent now leaned in, phones raised, recording every moment. The girl clung to her mother's side, torn between pride and fear, watching the man who had mocked her now attempt to strip away her mother's dignity. This wasn't just disbelief anymore. It was confrontation. A woman who had faced battlefields was being forced to defend her very existence, her honor, her right to be recognized. The girl's heart pounded. She had never seen her mother falter, but here, under the glare of authority and doubt, even the strongest warrior looked burdened. And in that charged moment, when uniform faced uniform, when power clashed with prejudice, the truth of America's deeper wound was exposed. It wasn't just about a girl and her mother. It was about who gets to be believed, who gets to be respected, and who is forced to prove their worth again and again. The officer's smirk faded as the silence thickened. The world was watching, and the next move would change everything. The tension broke not with violence, but with undeniable truth. The mother produced her identification, proof of her service, proof of the honor she had carried through foreign battlefields and years of sacrifice. The crowd murmured, some in awe, others in quiet shame for not speaking up sooner. The officer, once so smug, now stood rigid, his authority stripped bare by the weight of his own prejudice. For the girl, the moment was unforgettable. She had seen her mother fight battles the world would never know about, but here, in the open daylight of her schoolyard, she witnessed another kind of fight. A fight for dignity, for recognition, for the simple right to be believed. Pride swelled in her chest, but so did a heavy truth. No matter how many medals her mother wore, there would always be those who refused to see past the color of her skin. This wasn't just one incident. It was a mirror held up to society, a reminder that racism doesn't always wear a mask of violence. Sometimes it hides in mockery, in disbelief, in the silence of bystanders who choose comfort over courage. And while the officer's laughter may have ended that day, the scars it left will echo far longer. The question we must ask ourselves is this: how many more mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters will be forced to prove their worth in a world that should already know it? Until we answer that, and until we change it, stories like this will keep unfolding, again and again,